Retribution Paladin cops a lot of hate from the WoW community. It gets labelled as too easy, brain dead, able to pump out damage by mindlessly smashing 3 buttons. And yet, since its rework in early Dragonflight, it has consistently been one of the most popular DPS specs in the game. And why is that? Because the hate is wrong. Ret Paladin is actually the poster child for optimal class design in World of Warcraft, and I'm going to explain why. With Blizzard's class and gameplay overhauls coming in midnight, Ret serves as a perfect example of a class that caters to both casuals and sweaty nerds like me. This video isn't simply going to just glaze Ret Paladin, it's going to highlight why Ret Paladin is so universally liked by all that play it, where some of the hidden optimizations with the class lie, and why Blizzard should be looking to move towards similar class designs across the board going into midnight. We've all heard the classic opinions which have plagued Ret over the last few years. It's too easy, I could play it with my eyes closed, there's no such thing as a good Ret Paladin. This hasn't just been targeted towards Ret as well. Things like Beast Mastery Hunter jump to mind as another spec which has been the target of this type of criticism. But why do people think this? Well, it is because of the relative simplicity of Ret Paladin's DPS rotation. You build Holy Power with Judgment and Blade of Justice, you send Wake of Ashes pretty much on cooldown, and you spend your Holy Power with Divine Storm and Templar's Verdict. On top of this, Ret has some fairly intuitive defensive abilities. Taking some damage, use Shield of Vengeance to get a HP shield. You're taking ticking damage, Divine Protection is just a flat DR. Need to live literally any damaging event that's ever occurred ever, just bubble. In a sense, yes, Ret is easy, but using that as an insult is actually quite reductive. In fact, I would argue that the ease of play is actually what attracts so many people to it. Ret makes sense even on just an intuitive level. You can go from being a total novice to piloting the spec at an acceptable level in just a few hours. The visuals are snappy, the class is thematically well designed, you feel like a sturdy weapon of the light dishing out holy damage to your enemies. Everything gels perfectly. So does this mean that Ret is popular because it looks cool and it's easy? Well, yes and no. For those who are more experienced with the spec, there are a lot of optional optimizations you can make to squeeze out extra little bits of damage and utility. In that statement though, pay close attention to the word optional. You can track effects like Divine Toll procs and your auto attack swings to know when you're about to generate passive Holy Power to make sure that you don't overcap. You can keep tabs on things like Blessing of Dawn, saving your extra Hammer of Light for times when you have the 20% damage increase from it. You can learn how your utility spells like Blessing of Freedom or Blessing of Protection interact with different mechanics in dungeons and raids, allowing you to mitigate the impact of certain abilities on yourself or a teammate. You could use things like mouse over macros with Lay on Hands and Word of Glory, potentially saving the life of a party member when the healer can't do that alone. There are plenty of other niche mechanics, but I won't belabor the point. The thing is, there is a lot of small optimizations that Ret players can make, but that they aren't forced to make to play the game at a basic level. At a baseline, the spec is snappy, easy to pick up. Just performing the basics of the rotation will lead to you basically doing 80 to 90% of the maximum damage. It is a simple to learn class, but the option for mastery is still there. In my opinion, this is the reason that Ret is so elegantly designed and why it is one of the most popular DPS specs in the game. It's the fact that it has both simplicity and depth existing simultaneously. Not only this, but I believe Ret Paladin actually perfectly captures the class and game design which Blizzard is moving forward towards when coming into midnight. If we look at this graph here, this breaks down a class's skill floor and skill ceiling. The floor being the level of skill needed to pilot the class at an absolute basic level, and the ceiling being the level required to play it at its absolute maximum potential. Now, let's have a look at Ret. It has a relatively low floor, it's easy to pick up and play in most forms of content. We can also place the skill ceiling, say somewhere around here. There is a lot of knowledge and tracking needed for true mastery, but it's certainly not the highest. So what this means is that a newer or more casual player can easily engage in most forms of content yet there is still room for nerds like me to optimize the gameplay. It is enjoyable for pretty much all facets of the player base. Let's instead look at Enhancement Shaman as a comparison. In this case, the skill floor is quite high. It is quite a complex spec, and mismanaging certain buffs and abilities, many of which aren't overly intuitive, will lead to significantly reduced performance. Alongside this, the skill ceiling is quite high. Watching someone like Zorthus, who is extremely knowledgeable and talented on Enhanced Shaman, is very impressive, but it is out of reach for most of the player base. Now, in this situation, sweaty nerds will enjoy themselves, but the wider player base is almost gate-kept from the spec. You might really like the vibe of Enhancement Shaman. It is very cool, but if misusing a few globals will tank your DPS, it's simply just not going to be fun for casual or newer players who make up the vast majority of the player base. And let's be honest, even as an experienced player, I hate this gameplay loop as well. I cannot stand classes where pressing buttons in the wrong order, especially in a hectic environment like Mythic Plus or Raid, results in performance being tanked. You are disproportionately punished for mistakes on a lot of specs, and this is something that Ret Paladin doesn't suffer from to anywhere near the degree that most other specs in the game do at the moment. And this doesn't just apply to Ret Paladin either. This design philosophy extends to a few other specs in the game as well. Let's take a look at this graph of the Mythic Plus spec popularity from the start of this season up until now. At the top, we have Frost DK, which has recently undergone a rework and simplified a lot of its previously irritating and unintuitive mechanics, and is now likened to a Ret Paladin in its gameplay style. Restoration Shaman is typically viewed as one of the easier healers to learn. Ret is in third, and then followed by BM Hunter, which is also in a similar situation where its core rotation is quite simple. Now, I am not experienced on any of these specs, and obviously tuning does play a part here to some extent, but the fact that the 4 most played specs are all in this low skill floor bucket is very telling. Players want classes that are easy to learn, but this doesn't automatically remove the skill ceiling. Mastery on each of these classes still takes a lot of time and practice and effort. They are accessible, but at the same time deep, and both of them are happening at the same time. But why am I even making these points? Well, as the self-proclaimed Paladin president, it is my duty to spread propaganda to brainwash the masses because pink class is best class. Also, join my channel memberships. The nation is in a deficit due to excessive expenditure on Pokemon cards. The Pink Man leader very much needs your support in this troubling time. Jokes aside, there is a lot of discussion going around recently about the changes to add-ons and encounter design and spec design going into Midnight. A lot of people that I've spoken to are dooming, and they think that the game is going to be simplified into oblivion, removing all elements of skill expression. I think looking at the broad success of classes like Ret Paladin and Frost DK and Beast Mastery Hunter should be evidence that not only is simplicity not inherently bad, but that players generally like it. On top of this, Blizzard do seem to be quite on the ball with their ability to create specs that are simple to understand, yet still complex at a deeper level. On this note, I encourage everyone to be actively providing positive feedback to Blizzard, especially during like PTR phases and on social media, to try and bring the game forward towards a better design like this. Classes that are deep at a certain level but don't require a PhD to actually play. We want this game to be accessible and enjoyable to as many people as possible. As much as I adore complexity and I really like sitting down and just min-maxing things, that is not what a lot of people want. So having it be an option where both can exist in tandem is just ideal going forward. So get out there, make your voice heard, and let them know what they're doing right and what they're maybe doing wrong. Also, this video does sort of serve as a why you should play Ret Paladin style video as well. In short answer, yes, you should join the great pink nation, and together we will conquer World of Warcraft. That's all from me. Make sure you like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate everyone who watched until the end of the video. So until next time, gamers, take care.